You've seen it everywhere, right? Generative AI. It's creating these incredible images, writing amazing articles, even composing music from just a simple prompt. But here's the thing. That incredible power comes from a massive appetite for data. And a lot of that data, well, it's protected by copyright. This has kicked off one of the biggest, most intense legal and ethical fights of our time. So, let's get into it.
So what's all the fuss about? Well, it really boils down to one huge question. When an AI model digests a copyrighted book or looks at a photograph, is it actually learning from it? Kind of like how a human student learns, or is it just making a really sophisticated, high-tech copy? Seriously, the answer to that one question could shape the entire future of both AI and the creative world as we know it.
All right, so here's our game plan for digging into this. First, we're going to talk about AI's insane hunger for data. Then, we'll pop the hood and see how these models actually learn. After that, we'll dive right into the thorny copyright questions, unpack the super important fair use defense, and finally, we'll ask, could licensing be the way out of this mess for everybody?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Why is this even a thing? It's actually pretty simple. For an AI to create something that sounds or looks like a human made it, a poem, a piece of art, it first has to study a mind-boggling amount of stuff that humans have already created. And when we say a lot of data, I mean billions. Seriously, billions of individual works. We are not talking about a few books from the library. We're talking about data sets measured in terabytes. That's like millions of books. If you want a model to understand everything from how we text each other to how a scientific paper is written, well, it has to see it all.
So how does an AI actually learn from all this stuff? It's not magic, even though it can feel like it. It's a very technical, step-by-step process that hinges on one critical ingredient.
And that ingredient is called training data. That's the giant pile of works we were just talking about. The best way to think about it is this. The training data, the whole internet, every book, every song, it's both the AI's textbook and its teacher all rolled into one. It's what teaches the model all the statistical patterns it needs to know.
You can really break the whole development lifecycle down into 4 main steps. First, they've got to get the data, usually by scraping it from websites. Then, they curate it, clean it up, organize it. Step 3 is the big one, training. That's where the model tweaks billions of little internal knobs called weights to learn all the patterns. And finally, they deploy it in an app you can use. The key thing to remember is that copyrighted stuff is used in those first 3 steps, which turns this whole process into a legal minefield. And that, right there, brings us to the heart of the legal problem. See, copyright law gives creators the exclusive right to make copies of their work. So if the process of building an AI involves making a bunch of copies of copyrighted stuff without asking, is that, by definition, infringement?
And look, we're not just talking about one single act of copying, it's happening over and over again throughout the process. A copy gets made when they download a work to put it in the dataset. Another copy is made, a temporary one, when it's loaded into the computer's memory for training. And this is the really controversial part. Some of the work can get memorized inside the model itself. That means just sharing the finished AI model could be seen as sharing illegal copies.
So you're probably thinking, wait, if there's all this copying going on, how on earth are AI companies getting away with it? Well, their entire defense, the whole thing, hinges on 2 little words, fair use. Think of fair use as a safety valve built into copyright law. It basically says, hey, not every single use of copyrighted material needs permission or a paycheck. It's there to protect things like freedom of speech and innovation. But here's the catch. It's not a simple rule. It's a flexible 4-part test that judges have to apply differently to every single case.
So, how do courts decide? They have to balance these 4 key things. First, what's the purpose of the new thing? Second, what was the original work like? Was it creative or more factual? Third, how much of the original did you use? And fourth, and this one is huge, what does your new thing do to the market for the original?
Okay, let's look at the first factor, which is a big one, purpose. On one side, you have the AI developers. They say their use is transformative. The AI isn't reading a novel for fun. It's just analyzing it for statistics to build a new tool. But on the other side, the creators are saying, hold on a second. The purpose is to make money by building a product that spits out things that compete with us. They argue that's the exact opposite of transformative. Now, the real fireworks really start when we get to factor 3, how much was used. The arguments couldn't be more different.
Developers say, look, we have to copy the whole thing. It's a technical requirement. An AI can't learn art or language from just little pieces. But creators see it as wholesale theft. They say this is copying on a scale nobody ever imagined, and it's way beyond what fair use was ever meant for.
And this brings us to what's often the knockout punch in these cases, the effect on the market. Developers argue that their AI doesn't stop people from buying the original books it trained on. They say it's a new tool that helps people be more creative. Creators have a completely different take. They say AI-generated stuff is a direct substitute that cheapens their work, and, this is critical, it kills the brand new market for licensing their work for AI training in the first place.
And this quote right here from the Association of American Publishers, it just sums up the fear from the creator side perfectly. They don't see AI as a helpful tool. They see it as a direct competitor that was built using their own work without their permission and that could completely wreck the value of what they create for a living.
So, with the courts all tied up in this huge, messy debate, a lot of people are asking, isn't there a better way? A way to move forward without waiting years for judges to decide. And the solution everyone keeps talking about is licensing.
But when you look at the options, you can see there's no silver bullet here. Voluntary licensing, where companies make individual deals, is flexible, but trying to do that with millions of creators is basically impossible. Collective licensing, where one group handles it all, is more efficient, but you start running into other legal issues. And then there's compulsory licensing, where the government just sets a price. That guarantees access for developers, but it can kill the market and take away a creator's right to say no. Every single option has some pretty major drawbacks.
At the end of the day, this goes way beyond just lawyers and coders. It's a massive philosophical question about the real relationship between us and the machines we're building. As this tech just keeps getting faster and more powerful, we all have to ask ourselves, should the entire creative history of humankind be used as the fuel to create artificial minds? And what does that mean for our future?